Welcome back to Real Talk with Brian and Dan on 1150 AM KKNW. I'm Brian.
And I'm Dan.
Our next guest is Dylan Foggit with Brink Property Management. Dylan holds an MBA and now helps run his family's property management company. Over the past 6 years, he managed a unique portfolio of roughly 200 homes south of I-90, consisting mostly of single-family homes, a few apartment buildings. Currently, he helps facilitate marketing efforts along with educating interested homeowners and investors while onboarding new clients. Welcome to the show, Dylan.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So what do you do when you're not managing property?
If I'm not managing property, I'm raised in the Northwest here. I try and spend as much time as I can outdoors.
He's remodeling a house.
Oh, nice.
I am remodeling a house. So recently, lots of housing in my life. Remodeling a house I just bought in Bellevue here. It's about this time I'm actually wishing I hired a general contractor because it is a much bigger project than I anticipated. But, housing's my passion. Other than that, I like to be outdoors as much as I can, snowboarding in the winter, sailing in the summer, trying to get out in the water.
Excellent.
Nice.
So we always break into memory lane here. So you grew up in the Northwest, right?
I did, yep.
So tell us a fond memory about the home you grew up in.
A fond memory of the house I grew up in. I grew up in Klahani, which is at the time a very new community. It was still under construction, most of it. There was a period where the power was out for about a week, and I always reflect back on that because work was everyone was home from work. We were home from school. We were playing board games with flashlights and stuff like that. I really found that to be a fond memory, something that's very rare and something that hasn't happened in my life since. So
That's awesome.
Let me guess, President's Day storm.
Yeah,
Probably was. I remember that.
Yeah,
we were out for a week.
About a week, yeah.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
It was trees down everywhere, and
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
It's like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
There was a car right up around the
Oh.
corner from our house that happened to be near a tree that fell. And that tree, as it fell, the roots popped the car up and was sitting basically on end like that.
Wow.
It was pretty cool. That was a serious storm.
Well, we've all experienced a rapid increase in housing costs in recent years. What's driving this?
Yeah, I think very similar to the sales market. This is, I think, the most textbook example of supply and demand that I can possibly imagine. We have staggering amounts of people moving into the area for work. Also, it's just a very beautiful area, so who wouldn't want to be here? And we haven't been able to keep up with that as far as new housing supply hitting the market in the past years. Now, we are starting to get there, and we're starting to see some leveling of that, but ultimately that's what it comes down to.
What do you have hard numbers, statistics of how many people are moving to this area?
I do, and in 2016, 2017, and that's when things were the hottest for us. We were posting ads online and having applications before we can even finish our advertisements.
Oh, wow.
During that time, we were having about 80,000 people move into this area as a net in migration. That's factoring in people moving out, people moving in.
80,000 net.
Per year.
Wow.
People or households?
That's people, total
Okay.
people.
Okay.
So,
So say 40,000 households maybe just to
right,
be safe.
That's per year, and that's continued on through, and we've all experienced
Wow.
the traffic these days. It simply comes down to that. Most of them land in the Puget Sound region, and that's really what we're experiencing. And recently, that's tapered off a little bit. I think the numbers for last year are right around 40,000. So about half of the growth that we've been experiencing, but by any stretch of the imagination, is still just staggering numbers of people moving to the area.
Is it affecting all cities equally?
It not all equally, no. The primary markets obviously are going to be the Greater East Side, Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, even Sammamish is growing quite substantially. And Seattle. And what we'll see from there is that cities get impacted as that echoes through the markets and as people look for more affordable housing options and stuff like that.
Where do you see the best bang for the buck for renters right now?
Best bang for the buck for renters. I love Burien. I think access to downtown Seattle if you work in town. It's still very easy to get there. You can still find relatively affordable homes comparing to, places like Wallingford and stuff like that, some of the other neighborhoods.
Would the same be true for people wanting to invest?
The same would be true, yes. I see often houses available for sale in Burien, White Center, and as you kind of go up towards West Seattle there, that are still very affordable and relative terms. And the gap between the rental income and the cost of ownership is narrow down there relative to, say, downtown Bellevue or some of these other areas.
So I know nobody's got a crystal ball, but how long, based on your experience, do you see this demand continuing?
I see it tapering off. I don't see it being a downturn or anything like that, but we are seeing thousands and thousands of units coming online now. The build cycle takes about 8 years from the start of a development process to the time that unit's available online. And we're starting to see that process now. All these buildings are being complete, especially downtown Seattle. You're having entire stacks of 1,000-unit buildings.
I was going to say,
online.
because you help with single family, but you guys also do multifamily property.
We also do multi.
And those multi ones are the ones that can help take the pressure off the rental market.
Absolutely. Especially when you have a building with 1,000 units that comes online, they often have leasing specials, 2 months free, Amazon gift cards, all this kind of stuff impacts the overall yearly cost of the rental contract. And that starts having an impact on all the other markets as well.
Okay. So how are renters coping, and where are they moving to?
A lot of renters, we're seeing more and more applicants, multiple households, many couples applying together to get larger homes. We're seeing families stick together longer, either extended or immediate. And that's really to help share some of the increased cost of housing because they want to stay in a location that they may like in some of these primary markets. And if you think about it, the cost per bedroom starts to diminish for each additional bedroom you add onto a house. That for what might cost one bedroom apartment or condo is $1,500. And that same market, a 3-bedroom house, that doesn't mean it's $4,500 to rent that house. You might be looking at $2,500 or maybe $3,000. And so this is what we're seeing people cope with that. And they're also starting to move towards areas like Snohomish County, Pierce County, and stuff like that.
Okay.
So what are some general shifts that you're seeing over the last few years?
We are seeing, as we post houses, and it really depends on the city, and even within cities, there's submarkets. Seattle, Ballard is going to be very different to downtown Seattle, for instance. We are really seeing demand stay strong, a leveling effect and inventory rising, and with that, expectations are rising because with this new inventory that's coming online, it's all new construction. Their walls are perfect. Their appliances are new. Their cabinets are great, and that's really starting to impact the secondary market as far as houses built in 2000 or even 1963.
So the expectation of somebody paying top dollar is going to require those landlords to either do updates or understand the prices affected by it.
Exactly. And if not update, at least make sure that the walls are freshly painted, the carpets are fresh, at least shampooed or replaced, and all those kinds of things are impacting because people have choices these days, and it's important to stay competitive.
So how does the sales market impact the rental market?
It does have an impact, albeit it is kind of on the side, and I'll kind of explain that. As the cost of housing has risen to purchase a property, let's say in Bellevue, it probably costs you about $1,000 a month more to own that house as it does to rent that very same house currently. And I'm just making up these numbers, but it's roughly around there. And that has an impact on people staying within the rental market. It's more affordable. They might be waiting for a downturn in sales market.
Yeah.
Good luck, right?
Yeah.
And so it does have an impact there. We are seeing kind of in the mid-tier market, right around $2,500. Actually, people are purchasing because in that range. And that's having an impact on growing inventory, houses staying on the market longer. So it's kind of an indirect impact of that, and we can continue to see that.
What do you see as the future for the local rental market?
The local rental market, I think we can continue seeing a leveling off on price increases. I do see it still increasing over time, just not at these 15% per year that we were seeing way
what's a
back
standard
when.
average?
It depends on the market again, very very much so, even down to the neighborhood level.
Okay.
But places like Bellevue, we're actually we're relisting properties at the same price that they were rented for last year.
Okay,
and
so
at
no change.
sometimes we have to tame off if it was rented.
Because you
in,
kind of hit a
say,
ceiling, right?
we hit a ceiling in 2016, 2017, and people were bidding each other up even in the rental market. And we're not seeing that anymore, so we're having to curb our expectations as far as that goes.
So without getting too political here, I see things like Seattle enacting renter protections, for example, the no winter eviction. What, in a general sense, what impact do you see that happening on the rental market?
We have yet to see the real impacts of that. I think we have seen in other markets how it's impacted their rental industries. We have had some clients sell properties. The property will always be there. So the question is who's going to purchase them and who's going to maintain, especially like a multifamily building. Those will always remain and they will always be rentals, right?
Right.
I don't think it's going to have an immediate tangible impact on the rental market. My concern and where I focus is times are not always as strong as they are now. And
right.
What happens in the time of downturn and how long is it going to take to pull ourselves out of a downturn with all these regulations in place? And that's where my concern lies.
Okay, interesting. So in the limited amount of time we have left, if you were to buy an investment property right now, where would you look?
For me, I love the east side. Even going as far down south as Renton, access to jobs is very important. My personal strategy with rental properties is property price appreciation, so I'm not as concerned with the monthly cash flow.
It's not as much cash flow.
It's
Right.
not about the cash flow for me, and you likely won't be able to cash flow on a property on the east side right now. But over time, I think the cash flow doesn't have as significant of an impact than, say, a 50% increase in the property value over the next 10 or 15 years.
Yep.
And that's what I'm focused on.
Okay.
Dylan, thanks for coming on the show today. It's very
Thank you.
informative.
Yep,
How
this has
do
been
our
great.
listeners reach you?
You can reach me either online. Our website is brinkpm.com. My email address is always the best way. It's simply dylan@brinkpm.com. It's DYLAN.
Dylan, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Remember that all of the segments of our show are available to watch on our YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about any of our guests, please subscribe. Join us after the break for some final thoughts and something fun to do.
Woohoo.